Hello, friends. How are you today? I've got a really interesting analysis for you of the big break in the Schumann energies. What I did was I analyzed the time at which the chart stopped, the data stopped, and then I did an astrology chart for the moment of that time. And the reason that I do this, I've done this several times where there's kind of, seems like to me, meaningful breaks or changes in the data, because I feel that it's a way of gaining information. Like, we can't see what happened on the chart at that time, but I can look at the energies of the planets and say, hey, what was changing, or, what happened, or, what's being anticipated. And then we can relate that to what's been going on in the Schumann. I talked about this yesterday, and it's interesting because the black charts in the amplitude and qualities are very much, I'd have the same comments as yesterday, but in the frequency charts, here, let me show you. So we're going to look at this break in data here on November 11th, and you can see it started after 7 a.m. and then ended just after 11. So there was over 3 hours, possibly 4, of data loss. So what I do is I go in, and it's somewhat time consuming, but the method of figuring out what time this starts, and then I run the chart. So I estimate the data stopped at 7:22 a.m. on the chart. There's one change in the frequencies that I want to really show you. We had an uptick after the data stopped, and that was really interesting. Significantly above 25.2. I've been looking at that mark as a courage mark, but look, after the data halt, okay, we jump up. So I don't know what happened at that time. What I have said is, at this higher end of the frequency range, it's my view that we have courage. Like, we're standing up and we're allowing ourselves to be seen. And when we do this, friends, we are protected by the light that we are. Let me explain how to do things safely, how to stand up in a way that where you're protected. You are always protected by God, by the divinity within you that created you, that is your living soul. Each one of us has that within. And so when you stand up and what you are doing is in perfect alignment with the soul, embodying the soul that you are, when you are going one-to-one with God's guidance for you as close as you can, you are protected under divine law. You're exercising your divine authority as a living soul in human form. And this protects you. But this, when you bring your expanded consciousness to this and you really understand what I'm saying here, it elevates you to the acceptance of divine law over any other law. Because I claim the divinity within me as my authority. That's who I answer to. So when I see something like this, where we are standing up, in my videos in the spring of 2020, I explained a lot about the 25.2 thing, so you can go look at those videos, and in the summer of 2020. This is life-changing information that I'm sharing here. Coming to these insights and understanding was life-changing for me personally. I'm sharing the the summary of quite a long experience of pondering the meaning of these things, and really intensely for, over a decade now, in particular, applying it to the energy of who I am, from a spiritual perspective, of understanding the physics. That is what I'm sharing with you in my videos. So, anyway, thanks for being here and being on this journey with me. And I hope that this information can benefit you or assist you in your life in some way. So I called this Break the Psyop. And, you know, when we stand up like this, when we get courage, when we get strength, we feel those things because we have an inner sense that we're on the right track, we're doing the right thing. Once you start to do this over and over, your confidence builds and you get better at doing it. You get better at aligning. You get better at knowing what's yours to do. You get better at knowing this is the action I should take right now. I've had to practice this quite a lot because there are things my mind has told me that I want to do or I've always wanted to do. But when I check in and I pray about it, or I connect within and I check the alignment really from a soul level, what I'll see is that, no, it's not really my soul that's wanting to create that. It's not that I want to create that from the soul level. That's just me, you know, pondering off, thinking about the human world for years and years, and then, you know, bringing one of those thoughts up. But it's not really like, you know, when we don't feel that connection, we try to come up with other stuff to find meaning. And then if we decide to pursue those and it's not really in alignment, things don't really work as well. Why did I call this break the Psyop? It's because of what I see in the energy in this big space and what the data stopping at that time means. So I did an analysis of the full moon energies, just the astrology for November 8th, and I put that out in a report, and I did do a video as well. I'll link those two things below. The report is free, and I'm putting out a lot of information. It's a lot of valuable information. I created it so that people who don't understand all the astrological terms can understand it as well as someone who already understands astrology. So it's free right now. I'm just trying to gauge interest, getting traction, practicing, doing these reports. And I may begin to offer them more. And maybe I'll even offer readings by sign, you know, the way that some astrologers do. But I'm gonna need to charge for some of this information because a girl's got to pay the bills, and I put out a lot of information for free, and it's time for me to allow myself to receive again from those who wish to have that exchange of value with me. So in an expanded way. So this is a little experiment that I'm doing for that, and because I do it anyway, and I really enjoy doing it, and I enjoy doing these videos as well. So I might expand what I'm doing in the Schumann as well for 2023. I'm so excited. I can't wait. I want to have it moved along a little bit. So this is a quiet development. I'm just letting you know though, since you're in the in crew here, one of my viewers. So thanks so much for being here, and let's continue the story. The first thing I noticed when I was looking at the astrology chart, and I looked at the main planets, but I also looked at these asteroids. And the reason I look at asteroids, and I also look at shadow aspects like the quincunx or the semi-sextile, for those of you who know those terms. But the reason I look at the shadow aspects in these asteroids, and even the fixed stars, although I'll not be talking about that here, but they provide a flavor, a context, because when you're looking at a planet's position in a sign, there's a broad range of information that comes with that. And then these kinds of details help narrow what we are looking at, help narrow the perception. So it's interesting. The reason I mentioned the full moon is because some of these things have shifted since the full moon. And so I think it was really interesting that the data stopped at this time. Well, the fascinating thing here that happened, Mars and the moon came together at this time. At the time the chart stopped, they were maybe 6 degrees apart. Moon moves very fast. The moon during the data stop would have been moving closer towards Mars. And so with Mars having had a lot of stress related to it, which I went over in my 2 free reports, about this lunar month and the full moon. So significant stress. And the moon approaching it gives emotion, more emotion to that stress. And then it's so interesting because the moon at 17 or 18 here opposed Diesel at 19.5. And at the same time, Mars at 24, opposed Daedalus at 21. Daedalus moves pretty fast as well. So Daedalus during that time, but over the next, couple days, definitely would conjunct Mars. Now, the other thing is the moon has just passed over an aspect in the shadow with Uranus here, which can throw things in disarray. Let's see what else is on the chart that relates. Saturn at 18. Saturn's about building the future, rules, and pressure. It can constrict as well, depending on what else is going on. But look, Diesel is exactly, at the time of the chart, Diesel is exactly in the shadow of Mercury, which is about communication, but these are secret communications because we're in Scorpio, and Venus is in the shadow of Daedalus. It feels like there's some secret value here that Daedalus really wants to hold on to, and there's tension about is he going to have it? Is he going to have it? The degree that Mars represents, it's a range of expressions from being carefree and really having enjoyment over your activities, and on the other side, having to be really careful. And if one's not careful, facing a life and death situation. So for Daedalus, this is extremely stressful, and Daedalus is just 2 degrees from Diesel. So the situation with Diesel fuel is somehow adding to this stress and emotion that is building and that Mars has had for quite some time. Mars is moving away from its spiritually challenging quincunx with Pluto. Pluto feeling very rash, possibly a bit warlike, but making rash decisions, having a tendency towards that at this degree, which I've gone into detail previously. So those are the key things, but let's look a little bit more at the story of Daedalus. Daedalus, in my view, mirrors one of the very visible leaders right now of the United States of America. Let me give you a hint as to who this might be. He has a son who is Daedalus has a son who is extremely impetuous, makes poor decisions ultimately, and attempts to fly very high in life. So that gives you some extra information. Daedalus himself is very, very out of bounds. I explained that Daedalus actually, despite being extremely competitive, sucking up to the king, as I said, and really a genius at strategy, he actually helps end child sacrifice in Minos in the Greek mythology. It's very, very interesting. Of course, that happens by accident. He had this interaction with Ariadne. She was the daughter of the king. Okay, so he had this where he told her all the secrets. And when I was saying that in the video yesterday when I made it, maybe it was 2 days ago, I just had this huge hit that there were sexual favors involved in that. Okay, so that's another clue as to the character, Daedalus, who that might be in our current day. Daedalus in the astrology chart being out of bounds means that his energy is off the charts. Okay, it's very high. There was some real emotions here. There were some real emotions. The moon is key because it moves so fast. So I think that was big. The asteroid Diesel, which was named for the diesel engine, and I'm using it to kind of give a gauge about diesel fuel and the energy of that, because that's been before the election, that was in our media so much. Diesel is starting to move into an opposition with Mars, which I found very interesting. So what I did was I spent some time and I tracked, when does Mars exactly oppose Diesel. But it moves into direct opposition November 17th, and it's applying very, very strongly on the 17th. And then it peaks sometime for us in the U.S. late the 17th or the 18th of November. So this break in the chart brought this to my attention because the moon and Mars, when you're talking about a 3-hour period, and when you're talking about energies moving dramatically since the full moon, you really are looking at the inner planets. And it's really interesting because Venus, I also noticed that Venus is moving very close to 0 degrees. It will be at 0 degrees November 17th. So when Venus is at 0 degrees of Sagittarius, it's about, oh my God, what is going on with my resources, my wealth, what I value, and the future, my vision of my future. What is the meaning here? What's happening? And so it's interesting that that's also happening around this time. Now, on the personal level, there's some other movements here that I want to show you. Anteros on the 11th, the chart break, was at 1 degree and 42 minutes. It's moved into Scorpio, but it's square Metis in Aquarius. Now, Anteros is about lost love or the longing for love. And there was a yod to Anteros at the full moon and Haumea, which is about fertility. It's very interesting. I was in a social thing last night. There were 2 women who were talking about fertility. Actually, this came up 3 times yesterday. It was another conversation as well. And one of them, the woman lost, it's just terrible. There's a baby loss. That was one of them. It was actually 2 babies. One of them was about wanting to have babies, and the other one was a woman who could not have babies. So this whole idea about Haumea, fertility, and being able to have children, and the longing for love, lost love, relationships that are lost because of passing on, breaking up, trauma, whatever's happened. But what's happened is because Anteros has moved, kind of like a record scratch, like that, it's like what we want is moving out of range. And you can have very intense emotions with Anteros. There's a deep tugging at the heart, especially now that it's in Scorpio, which is watery and emotional, deeply. And where we have secrets, even things that are secret to ourselves. And so sometimes it's really hard to control our emotions. I woke up crying. Okay, I woke up this morning and I was crying, and I was like, everything is a disaster. I am failing at what I'm doing, and I should just stop everything. Okay, now I checked in and I got, these are not my emotions. This is what the offer is. Okay, but this is how I felt this morning. I was crying. And then I opened my computer, and a couple of friends had sent me these wonderful, beautiful messages of feedback about my work. And then I was crying again because then it was like, see, Anteros can also represent long-term love. And so these were people I've known for a long time who were supporting me with this loving energy. I had no expectation that this was going to happen this morning. And it was amazing. And so this is the other side of Anteros, the joy and the gratitude and the satisfaction that comes from understanding that our relationships are what is truly important. The yod to Anteros in Haumea has Jupiter and Sedna involved. So with Jupiter, Jupiter is big. It's a big planet, and it's in retrograde. And so what that means is it's contracting, and it can make the emotions, and it can kind of have this crushing feeling. especially if it's going over key points in your chart. Right now, Jupiter's at 29 degrees, but it's retrograded all through the lower single degrees, like something like the 7, 8, 9, and now it's already back all through down to 1, 0, and now 29. And it's in a deeply karmic place. So deeply karmic patterns are coming to the surface, okay? And that drives some of these strong emotions by some of these fast-moving planets like the Moon, Mars, and even the asteroid Anteros in this chart break. And Sedna's about our woundings in childhood and trauma, so I mean, really, can we load anything else in here? Oh, yeah, we can. Here, let me show you one other thing. With Anteros being almost at 2 degrees, it's 8 minutes from 2 degrees, and it's within a degree of the new moon for this month. You know what? I have a free report. I did too. I have a free report for the new moon for this month as well. So I'll link that below. And if you haven't gotten it, you can get 2 free reports right now from me with a lot of great information to be roadmaps for you, making your decisions. But so here's the deal, okay? Anteros has just moved to almost 2 degrees Scorpio at the chart break, okay? The break in the data. What's happening here is that the new moon for this month, which is October 25th to November 22nd, was at 2 degrees of Scorpio. So this is the point. And so Anteros is kind of, again, tugging at our heartstrings here. And the whole fact of the matter is that this new moon was at the same 2 degree that the new moon from September 25th was at, which was at 2 degrees of Libra. And at 2 degrees at Libra, there's also a black hole. I know, it's crazy, but it's actually at 2 degrees and 22 minutes, okay, is the black hole from another galaxy. I forget the name of the galaxy, M87, that's what it is. And so the new moon was like at the precipice of the black hole in September. Then then this month, the new moon was at the precipice again because it was in shadow to that. And being in shadow to a black hole is like you're at the edge of the black hole. And then America, for those of you in this country, was at 3 degrees at the full moon, 3 degrees of Libra. So it was at the precipice of the black hole. And now Anteros is almost at 2 degrees. Perhaps even it's moved there while I'm speaking, okay? At 2 degrees of Scorpio, the next sign. So it's in shadow to the black hole. And when you're in shadow to something, it's like you're at the edge. You're at the precipice, okay? Just out of view, at the edge, but at the precipice, right? Because it's influencing us, but we don't know it. So this is very dramatic. I really wish we could see what happened in this data break, okay? Because, whoa, this is some emotional stuff. And it's deeply emotional. Mars also changed degrees, okay, since the full moon. So right now, Mars is at 24 degrees. Now check this out. If we needed anything to add to the emotional tension, the Sabian symbol in my retrograde methodology for looking at Sabian symbols, I'm using the interpretation of 24 degrees, which is where Mars is at retrograde. Children skating over a frozen village pond. Okay, and that's Rudyard's definition of the degree, and then Linda Hill adds carefree children. Okay, so here's the thing. I don't know if you skated over a frozen pond when you were a kid, but I did, okay? Now, could it be super fun? Sure, it could be. You could also fall on your ass, excuse me, my language. You could fall on your ass and hurt yourself, but you could also have just this amazing fun. I remember one time I did like a karate move. It was so fun. I did a karate move with someone on the ice, and this wild, cool flip thing happened. And anyway, but here's the thing. If you skate on the ice on a pond, there's one thing that you know you need to figure out where the hard ice is and where the ice might be loose or be breaking, okay? And you want to be really careful with that. And so it's important, like, to get the lay of the land of the pond. At least for me, this is other people might not have done it this way, but, skating around the pond, getting a feel, okay, here's where the hard ice is. And then we would share that information. Okay, go over there, that by the trees or whatever. That's where the strong ice is. And then if you go over there, it's a little more cracking because the risk is you could fall in. Now, if it's just a little pond, no biggie. But if it's a big pond, it could be a life or death issue. Potentially, someone falls in the frozen water. And in the description of the children being carefree, that also indicates, are we paying attention? Let me tell you about what's coming up. So you have Mars at 24, and what's going to happen is that, see, Mars and Pluto are in this quincunx. That's a spiritual challenge. And this is actually the Psyop, Mars, quincunx, Pluto. Because Pluto is in the seat of government, policy, law, our big institutions in society. And Mars is just, wild energy in Gemini. Because Mars is out of bounds and Pluto is actually out of bounds right now at this moment of the chart break by a few minutes. And so this is the Psyop. Mars in Gemini, out of bounds, quincunx Pluto, which is at a warlike degree, but also a degree of sort of advancing strategies that aren't well thought out. I explained that there were restrictions to the warlike energy. I went over that in detail in my report and in the video of the full moon. So that's good. But adding some tension here is that in these charts that I'm showing you, Saturn and Uranus, they are square, but they're opposing and they're moving into a tighter opposition. So as we get to November 17th, when Diesel opposes Mars, the opposition that they have in declination, so they're square on the chart where you can see it. But like if you looked at the planets in 3D relative to Earth, you can look at declinations and they're actually also opposing. So this opposition is actually getting tighter. And as we move towards November 7th, it gets tighter again from even November 11th. It's tightened since the full moon, then it'll tighten again. So I think that's where the stress, these are where all the stressful things are coming from. Over time in the process of the spiritual journey, I've had to go through this belief, that belief, this belief, that belief, what was a lie and what is the truth for me. And you can study, use your academic capabilities to do an analysis. I did all of that, okay? What it got me was a lot of mental confusion because I still couldn't figure things out. As you go along in life, things can happen that cause you to take a step back and actually be willing to unhook from things you deeply believed were true. There's a process of checking in, and I agree to a certain extent that the truth is based in facts. But the fact is Galileo and Copernicus would have been banned from social media over the last 2 years. So there's a balance, right, between factual truth and the development of innovation and theories that lead us to these huge jumps in consciousness as they unfold and as they're brought into the public square and we discuss them. And these ideas that are disruptive, that are innovative, that are challenging to hard and fast beliefs, they come from spirit within. They come from an inspired place within. And these are the things that break the matrix, that break the psyop within. that ability to allow the inspiration to bubble up and let God lead you, let your soul lead you in the direction that it says to go. And the ability to check in on truth at the level of your own soul's state of being, state frequency. Because truth is a frequency. So when you use the frequency of the divinity that you are, and you assess truth, and I'm talking about well, here's what happened to me. I found that things that I had believed for a long time, that I was hard and fast, like this is it, statements that I was raised with, and I just accepted as fact. When I was willing to let it be okay if the answer was these things are true, or the answer was these things are not, I've been able to go back and uncover what is really the truth for me at the level of my own soul's information for me. And, I spent many, many years doing mental analysis, numbers analysis, financial analysis, etc. So I'm very capable. I mean, I'm just saying I've had a lot of experience analyzing things mentally. And so for me to be advocating something that is not mental or emotional and just like, hey guys, let's just rely on spirit. I didn't come to this conclusion willy-nilly. I really worked it, and it's been years, and it's taken me, I'd say in 2009, that's when I had this big break to start to be willing to look at these things, that some big life-changing things happen, and it just rocked me. So, and you know what? I'm glad it happened, because I broke the Psyop for me by doing this process of review. And it's spiritual, but it's also it's really energetic. To me, working with expanded energy is what expanded consciousness is. It breaks the Psyop in the field. It breaks the hardened energy in the field. It breaks the 4D matrix that tries to overlay our energy field. What we have here is an opportunity. The opportunity is for incredible spiritual growth in this lifetime, incredible clearing of the BS in your life. Shake it off. Incredible increase in our understanding. You have an ability to really touch and see, what do I care about? Like, what is truly meaningful to me? And, discovering this in your life and understanding it before the end of your life, the sooner that you come to understand true value in your life, the more amazing it is for you over your lifetime. Especially if you're young, if you can come to understand what truly matters for you. And I'm not talking about things that are temporary. What is temporary will be washed away. Yeah, I hear this. I can't remember what that's from. What's temporary will be washed away. But what is enduring? That's Anteros, enduring love. What is enduring is of the soul. It lasts for this lifetime, and it lasts for you as a soul, for me as a soul. In my understanding and in my memories, because I remember past lifetimes, what endures is the love and the loving relationships we've had. And these people in our incarnations show up for us again and again. And all I can say about that is I'm thankful. Break the Psyop, friends, and do it with people that you love, even if it's challenging. Focus on the love. If the relationship is challenging, elevate the love over argument. Elevate the love over worldly matters. That's how you get through that, in my experience.